I was thinking about
Got it.
this early. Yeah, there we go.
So it asked me if I had to say I got it in terms of the recording starting. So
Good. I'm glad.
I
Thanks.
got it now.
Thanks, Zoom. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Really fucking up the rhythm of this one. The last time we talked, though, I was just thinking about this. It was like a little bit over a year ago, I want to say.
I have no concept of time, but that sounds about possible. It seems about right. It could have been way longer. It could have been way less. I don't know. Seems like it was at least a year from my perspective, actually.
Yeah. And then I've seen you twice in person, which is nice.
Right. Well, the one time for Pearl's show and then you came down to maybe the paint show, or which show did you come to otherwise?
That's right.
The paint show. Yeah.
The paint show down there at the Wayfair.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So I mean, we chatted, Michael. We're just good friends now. That's just
yeah. We've gotten to know each other quite well.
If I see you twice, that's it. I mean, we're close pals.
Yeah, but I mean that's a good policy to have. I think that's a nice way. Everyone should live that way. That's a inclusive and fun way to live your life.
Right. At what point do you say you know somebody? Like, how many times of like seeing them or spending like time with them or something like that? Like, what is your? Because everybody has a number.
I don't know. I had a conversation about this with, like, I was just on tour with the band W.I.T.C.H, and Nick, the drummer of W.I.T.C.H, was kind of instrumental in getting me linked into that crew. And we've done multiple tours together. I used to tour with Jaco Gardner, and I used to tour, and we toured in that regard. And then now we've done 2 W.I.T.C.H tours together, and we've known each other for probably 6 years or something like that. But somebody on the road was trying to wrap their head around that band because there's people from all over the place, and they were like talking to us after the show, and they're like, "How do you guys know each other well and stuff?" And I was like, "Yeah, we know each other pretty well." And he was like, "I mean, we don't know each other that well." And I was kind of like, "Well, I mean, we know each other. We've known each other for like 6 years." And he's like, "I don't know the name of your mom or anything like that." And I was like, "That's true. I guess there's different standards and different layers. We know each other very well as touring musicians. We don't necessarily know each other like intimately, like old, very close friends, or I mean, I have some old, very close friends that I can't remember their mom's name anyways, actually, to be honest. So I guess different people have different criteria. Nick, apparently you need to know his mom's name, or he needs to know your mom's name. I'm more go off of, if I've known you through a number of circumstances enough times that I feel like I got a read on you as a person, then I'd say that we're, friends. I don't know. It's hard to say. There's various levels of friendship, I suppose.
No, I know that whole mom thing seems like a security question. Like,
yeah,
do you know Nick's mom's name?
I never thought of that, but I thought it was a very succinct way to sum up the fact that, like, we didn't know each other that well. And I was like, well, we do. Yeah, we know each other well enough to have played music together multiple times, been to multiple parts of the world together, partied together, but we don't know each other's mom's name. So it's different thing.
That's so close. I feel like you'd be like way close if you're going to another country with somebody.
I mean, yeah, we've been through, it's kind of funny. That's the weird thing though about this lifestyle, is that there's like, there's a bunch of people that you get thrown into situations with that you luckily mostly like and everything. So but which is great, but you just end up becoming put into like relatively intimate situations with people that you didn't necessarily choose consciously to be together with, but luckily you like them, and then you all like go through a bunch of intense experience together, and then you don't see each other for 2 years, and then it's like, are we good friends, or are we like, it's just like, really, what does that mean? What category do you put that in? It only really resides in the touring musician category.
Yeah, it's a fine line. It's a fine line there. Yeah,
it's a blur.
This is interesting stuff we got to get into, Michael. We're not gonna talk about any music. Like, who are you most close with? That's the real question.
I at this point in time with Pearl, with my girlfriend, certainly, and also, obviously my family, I'm close with them. I guess that's not obvious. Some people aren't close with their family. I'm close with my family, although I never see them anymore. Just talk to them on the phone because they're all up in Canada. And a handful of friends from back in the various cities I've lived in. So there's a few people that I consider very close friends. I don't have a ton of extremely close friends, but also I don't know all of their mom's names. So this is the thing. I have a different criteria that I'm going off here.
It all pertains. It's all circumstantial, though.
Yes, I mean, everything's relative.
And I mean, yeah, it must be really interesting, like being out there in the desert. I mean, it seems like such a different vibe from Canada to there. Would you agree with that statement?
Yeah, I'd say it's different. I mean, it's cool because it's like really a real desert. I remember actually driving through the desert. I hope I didn't tell you the story the last time I was on
Well,
the
if you
podcast.
did,
I
I
feel like
don't
I'm like
care.
turning into an old. I mean, you wouldn't remember. I wouldn't remember. No one else will remember. So I'll just tell it again.
It's all fresh,
or
yeah.
maybe I never told it. I don't know. Anyways, but I remember driving through the desert as a kid up in like there's desert areas in Canada. I remember being like, we're in the desert. And then I was like looking out for like cactuses and like they have coyotes probably, but I was looking for just the actual signs of a real cartoon style desert, and like this place has all of those. So it's very different than Canada in the sense that it looks exactly like what you would expect a desert to look like, which it's a different vibe. I mean, America is a different vibe than Canada in general though.
Sure. Yeah, it's you mean people always, or maybe people don't, but I certainly do think that like Canada and America not that different, but there is some very distinct. We're talking, I remember we talked about this is what something I recalled about what maybe is Ontario that didn't have like one of the grades of high school.
Yeah, there's different
secondary
ones.
school.
There's different. I think it might even be different from province to province. Do you guys have 12 down here?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had 12 in Alberta.
Oh no!
I only
no!
did 11 of them. But
I'm sorry.
I had 12. There was 12. There was an option. Sorry, go ahead.
There was another one. There was
another one that I could have gone to.
Yeah, that's what it was. It wasn't that.
Well,
you
in
didn't
Ontario,
have
I think they might have 13 or something. I don't know though. I didn't go to school there, but yeah, it's different. I mean, Canada and America, culturally, I think at the heart of the people, it's not that different. I think that like everybody on the West Coast all the way up past the border and all the way down and probably down into Mexico too, probably would have a relative amount of, I think like the regions are more based on the Rocky Mountains. And if you go regionally, like the people probably have a lot of similarities as people at the heart of them, but the economic and political differences really do have an effect on your life. It's interesting moving from a country to another country just to sort of see how, I think maybe before experiencing it firsthand, you'd expect that these man-made constructs shouldn't really have that much power. They're just made up and then we all agree on them and then they exist, but they're not like, it's not a natural force, but you really do see these man-made constructs do have a real effect on the psyche of the individuals living under them and the, just the culture in general. It's like, so there's a different speed, different vibe in America compared to Canada. And sometimes, I mean, I think lots of people would automatically think for the worse, in a lot of ways for the better, but there are the very highly publicized things about America that are less than optimal.
We're getting into it, Michael. We're getting deep into this. Dude. What do you think about aliens, dude? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm open-minded to the possibility.
And I asked Pearl this, I believe, as well. So this, I want to get your take on it as well. And
I'm definitely open-minded to the possibility. I've seen actually some like sort of UFO type things in my life, but I've never 100% confirmed that whatever I was witnessing was due to extraterrestrial beings. But I mean, we live close to the Integratron, which is this thing that was built to try to contact aliens. So this whole area has like a sort of interesting vibe around it. And our house is actually decorated with a bunch of alien stuff by our landlord as a theme of being so close to the Integratron. And which if you don't know about it, is like the sound bath place that was like this guy built to like contact the Venusian aliens. And then he died mysteriously and then all of his work disappeared and the place still exists, but he never finished it. So it doesn't actually, as far as I know, contact Venusian aliens as of this moment, but maybe it would have if he would have been able to complete the work. I think that, I think that probably most sane people and a lot of like theoretical physicists and stuff like that would agree that it would be more shocking and more unnerving if there was no other sentient intelligent life forms in the universe besides ourselves. That would be a weirder, stranger, smaller percentage possibility. So I would say that I probably think they exist, but if they don't, then that would also be interesting and maybe trippier than aliens existing. So kind of get your own, you get your mind blown one way or the other. So I'm open to either possibility.
Yeah, it makes me think of like how they define a friend or a close to somebody else, Like how
An alien, how they do it?
how do they
Yeah.
perceive it?
I mean, if they're
How about that?
traveling on space, on like generational spaceships or anything like that, like I don't know. I don't know what their technology is set up. I don't know what level they're at yet.
I
as
think
a
you know some
society.
shit. I think you picked up whatever the guy's work. I think that you've been delving into that, Michael. I think that's what you're doing in your
I
free
could
time.
get into it. I could see that working. Maybe once I figure out how to have my studio set up the way I want it and make a couple records that I'm satisfied with, maybe I'll go over there and see if I can't dig into his life work after I'm done with my life work, and I'll try to figure out if I can contact some aliens. Have you heard the John Lennon alien story?
No, I haven't.
That's a really crazy story. And this is like, it's not very highly publicized. Like the Beatles don't really go into it in all of their constant PR releases. Like, they're always releasing a movie every like 2 years to remind you that the Beatles existed and update the narrative to work for the modern time.
Yeah, I forgot about that, honestly, that now that you mention it. Yeah.
The Beatles, right.
The Beatles.
And they so this story is kind of like, but it is around, and once you get into it, you can find out about it. It was like when John Lennon was with May Pang, I think is her name, went on his break from Yoko Ono. I think that coincided with the Lost Weekend era. And he was at his apartment in New York, which I think is the same apartment that he eventually was shot out front of. It's also, it was like, did they use it to film Rosemary's Baby, or was Rosemary's Baby based on that apartment building? It has a lot of crazy, weird history around it and stuff anyways, on top of everything else. And him and May Pang both, like, up until John Lennon's death, and May Pang, as far as I know to this day, I'm not sure if she's still alive, but she, up until relatively recently, has given these interviews about how one day they weren't on any like psychedelic hallucinogenics. They maybe were like, had smoked some weed, but they weren't in the habit of seeing flying saucers when they got high on weed quite regularly. And they went out onto the balcony, and there was like a UFO hovering over them. And they both attest to it 100% to this day. I mean, no one else or maybe I can't remember if there was other witnesses in New York, which then raises the question of like, was it real? Or was it like some sort of like, interdimensional thing? Were they on a certain wavelength? I don't know. But it's a interesting story and ties in with all of these things.
Man, that's wild.
And it's around, he put it in his liner notes on one of the records. He said something like, on the such and such date in New York City, I saw a UFO. And I can't remember what else he said. He might have said something like, and no one believes me or something. I can't remember. But it's out there. This is all stuff you can find out about. It's much more credible than the Paul is dead stuff. So
I was going to say, people believe that.
Sorry?
Yeah, I said people believe that. People believe that, like, that Paul has been dead since whatever, 62 or something like that. I'm sorry, there's a bug flying around me right now. And
no, don't worry about it.
I'm in my buddy's apartment in Cameron. I do appreciate you letting me use your place. I'm down here in San Diego right now, and he was kind enough to let me do this here.
Do you say his name's Cameron?
Cameron Arista. Thank you.
Cameron, thanks for having us, man. Appreciate you facilitating.
You're the best. In this. Yes, he's letting it live. He's at work right now, but I'm at his station. It's nice though, it's a different kind of place. I used to do them at other people's houses, which is like, that's not really a different thing. But like now it's like no one's here. It's kind of interesting,
It's cool. It's nice to get into different zones.
Switching it up. That's why we're talking about this conspiracy stuff. Oh, Michael, are you still there? There you are.
I think so. Am I still there?
I'm sorry, dude. I just bored you for a minute. You had to leave.
No,
it's fine.
I mean, I should be all good now. It seems like my phone was trying to tell me that I was low battery, which I thought it was plugged in, but I was plugged into the fake outlet we have that doesn't work, which is we just keep to mess with people. But I fell into my own trap.
No, it's smart. It's smart to deceive the robbers. Yeah.
Yeah. You need, if a robber decides to charge his phone, he might leave with the dead phone instead. And that would be terribly inconvenient for him.
And that's burn on him.
That's our own version of security.
Do you feel secure out there in the desert?
Yeah. I mean, it's almost too secure now, really. There's like this play, I think this is a constant conversation that's also hitting sort of the mainstream. Like I see newspaper articles written by newspapers that are from far away about the Joshua Tree situation right now. But it's, there's only that short sweet spot in a place where all of the organized crime and like crack labs and like meth labs and like the brutal murders that happen around those things all gets pushed out of an area. And then there's this short period where it's really fun and cool and you feel pretty safe, but also it's not like overrun by rich people who are just building, luxury yurts and stuff like that. And that there's a lot of luxury yurt building going on out here right now. So, I mean, I'm happy with our little zone that we're in right now, but it is the Joshua Tree vibe is definitely kind of up for debate what that's going to be moving forward. And there's a certain amount of possibility that it could be kind of like San Francisco and so many other places that have kind of pushed out all of the artistic, cool, weird people and turned into like luxury playgrounds for tech bros and stuff like that. So I might be too safe out here at this point in time. I might prefer to have a little bit of like methed out crime over top of the luxury tech bros, but we'll
some dirtiness.
I'm bearing with it and I'm letting it happen, and I'm curious to witness where it goes.
Yeah. Do you feel like your writing style has changed with the change of scenery? Or the way that you go about
I think it
writing?
must have.
Yeah.
I mean, so much changes when you move, and and also when you just go through last couple of years that we've all gone through. I mean, we've all been through a pandemic. We've all seen a lot of things that we thought were sort of like a given or set in stone to some degree kind of show, if they didn't completely crumble and fall, they at least showed their potential for instability to us.
Yeah, they can happen fast.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I mean, I think that moving down here, the scenery probably has influenced me. I suppose I haven't really written any like desert songs or anything like that necessarily yet, but if I did, I could feel like I could do it with a little bit more authenticity than I would have before. But beyond the scenery, I feel like, just circumstances change. Since I've been down here, I've been playing a lot more guitar for other people, both like with Pearl and with Paint and with Witch and with other people too, which wasn't really a big factor in my life in Canada for whatever reason. Occasionally when I did sessions in Canada for other people, it was usually on bass, and I mostly was just working on my own project. Down here, I feel like there's such a hustling, bustling, vibrant scene of things happening that I keep getting asked to play guitar for people. I feel like that in some ways will affect my writing, and it probably has already affected my writing and arranging, because I've really had to dive into being a guitar player more seriously and more dedicatedly than I had for many years previously. And I have a studio space here, which I'm like, is probably the best studio space I've ever had. I'm kind of building it up more because I actually kind of feel relatively like secure here, and I have more space to operate in the house that I'm living in right now. So I think that'll change my writing approach and my production approach, and just everything. So, there's so many different factors, but I think that a move like that and all of the circumstances in your life changing, the people you hang out with from day to day change, the people you, talk to about music changes, the tools that are available to you to make music change, the scenery changes, and the role you play in the community that you're in this case as me as more of a guitar player a lot of the time changes. So that can kind of like change everything about the way you're making music, really. So I think it has probably changed me in ways that I probably don't even really fully understand or recognize.
It's awesome. That's good, Michael. And I know you're a busy guy, and I was gonna ask you, but I feel like you're too busy to play on my album, but it's fine. You got your own stuff going on.
We could possibly work something out. I try to, I like to play on people's shit. It's always fun to do it. I mean, I do tend to find that, especially post coronavirus. I mean, not that we're post coronavirus, but in this period where we're opening up our lives again, I do find that I'm barely able to finish all the things that I told people that I would finish. But you could be somebody that I told that I would play on the record that I could hopefully maybe eventually play on.
I do not have a record, but I'm just glad. It was a joke, but I'm glad that you're open to it, Michael, because we're ready to get rolled.
I am open to it. Figure out the record and then come talk to me about it.
I'll tell you one thing. It's gonna be about aliens. That's a starting point.
It's about aliens. Great. That sounds like a great thing. My family used to tease me when I was a kid that they thought that I was abducted and returned a different child by aliens. Because I was little, I had like blonde hair, and then I grew up and then got brown hair, and then started to show, the traits that I've now on, or that are now on full display in my character of being a little bit of a weirdo. And so they were like always teasing me that I wasn't their kid and that the aliens had given me back to them. So alien theme record, let's do it. Sounds great to me.
That's interesting that you're not denying that is a strong possibility, Michael. That's interesting.
That I am an alien.
I mean, you're not opposing it. I don't know. That's definitely what alien.
It always, some people would like, that would be the type of thing that some people would like talk to a therapist about for the rest of their life, about like, my parents always told me that I wasn't their kid. But I always thought it was a pretty cool idea, and obviously it was said with a certain amount of love and teasing, so it was all good. But I mean, if it was true, it seems fine to me. That seems okay.
It's all right. You're cool with it.
Yeah,
cool.
I mean, that could be a thing.
Do you view your previous albums as separate from the other? It's like, this was about this and this is about that and this is about the other thing.
Yeah, somewhat. I mean, I think that it's something that you could get hung up on if you try to expect that from a record too much, like, in terms of like themes and stuff like that. Like, it kind of happens naturally that you just write songs, and whatever comes to you. You can't really be overly picky about what that is, especially not in the moment of writing it. When you start to have a certain amount of demos or songwriting memos or whatever piled up, and you're starting to get close to making a record, then going through it and kind of curating it will naturally, like curating the choices of what you're going to put on the record that's actually going to make it on the record, will kind of like somewhat consciously and somewhat unconsciously create a theme. I think will naturally gravitate towards putting certain things together that have a certain something in common. Sometimes you don't even know what it is, and then as you make the record, you realize that you're like, oh, this is like, this thing keeps coming up in these songs. And as you go through the many steps of making the record a final piece of recording that people can buy, that tends to like be over that whole, process. I tend to realize that there's certain themes and certain things that were on my mind. Some things are really obvious. Sometimes sometimes this is a breakup record or whatever, or this is this, or this album's about this. But then even then there's more subtle things that you start to realize. So they kind of have their own thing, but it's not necessarily like my decision. I think that like, if I thought about it like that, that would be overwhelming and hard to like actually do. It would be really tough to like plan out the record and make it all fit together in a certain way. It just kind of fits together just because it's organically part of a certain time and a part of a certain like period of my life or whatever.
A natural through line throughout the whole.
Yeah, I mean, your life has a natural through line. Everybody's does. So it's like that, like, and different chapters have slightly different flavors, although there'll be things that are in common from all the chapters, so it's like, it's not that hard to kind of create themes in records because they kind of just happen. And even if you took something that was like written at a different time, which I don't always do, but even if you did, it would probably be because it had something in common. So it all kind of comes together into some sort of theme.
I like that adjective, the flavor to a chapter, dude. Write that down.
Yeah, that was an interesting little mix up of metaphors, but yeah, it's a flavor. It's like a lick and read.
Ooh, hey, you're writing our song, dude. All right, hey, I'm glad that you're really on board with this.
Yeah, that's a type of alien media. It's like a book with taste.
I mean, of course you would know. Yeah, if anybody would know, Michael, it'd be you.
I miss them. I miss those flavored pages of my homeland.
Do you view your those songs that you've written, I mean, like in years and years ago, in a different light now, looking back on them?
Yeah, I mean, I just try not to view them as often as possible. I think I've really taken that on, is the philosophy of not listening to your own stuff too often, like really like occasionally flip through it if it just a moment arises spontaneously. But I think that it's good as an artist to try not to like pay too much attention to your old stuff. I think it's better to be thinking about what you're going to do next. And I think that other people, hopefully, if you're lucky, will find more value in that stuff than you will as the person who made it. I think that making it is like, it just, I don't know, that kind of like takes it, you kind of get everything out of it that you're going to get out of it making it. You know that piece of work more than anyone could possibly know that piece of work, and it'll drive you crazy listening to it too much. But it's cool because you get to like know every element of this thing to the nth degree, but then that kind of takes away the magic of like putting it on and listening to it, except for very occasional times where you hear something that you're like, wow, that was kind of cool. I'm kind of happy with that. But like, you know, it's so basically I view those things as I just try to view them as like something that's made by somebody else almost. And I just try not to feel too inhibited by the fact that they exist.
You tasted all the flavors of the chapter, as you say, while making it, and that's that. And move on to the next.
That page is licked out, you know, it's like the flavor's all gone from it. There's nothing there for you anymore.
Are you usually introspective mostly while writing songs, or does it depend? It's just circumstantial.
Yeah, mostly introspective. I mean, songs can be, I used to write entirely alone all the time. I still do for my own project. Like, I don't have a lot of co-writers on my own stuff, but I've started to co-write more with other people for other things. But traditionally speaking, when I'm doing my own music, I tend to write by myself. And that is, I guess, just inherently introspective. But even within that solitary setting, there's a range of things. You know, there's times where you're just like totally in a meditative state with like some stuff like playing some instrument and just getting totally vibed out, and then the song like comes out of nowhere. And I guess maybe that's the most introspective way that can possibly happen. Maybe not in its entirety, or maybe in its entirety, but you'll get a weird snippet of like, you'll almost be singing something and be like, what is this song even about? And then you have to like figure out that you're like, oh, I think I get it, but I didn't know why I was singing it at first. Then there's other times where I'm like sitting down and being like, I need a song that's got like, maybe I could write a song about this. And it's like more cerebral and more like, just like
honed in on a certain thing.
It's like, maybe I could write a song about this. And you're almost like, sometimes you're almost writing like you're like writing for a musical or something. You're like, what if like this is what was happening? Or either it's about what's happening in your life, or it could even be about a relatively imagined situation. And then you're just writing about it. That's very like, you know, logical. Although there is some amount of like magic and creativity involved in it. There's also a little bit more just kind of like, you're being a songsmith, you're doing the craft of songwriting. So, but yeah, all of it's relatively introspective, and I guess there's a certain amount of introspection even in co-writing with people, where you're both kind of going into the zone and trying to find something, and then you're talking about it and kind of trying to get deeper into figuring out how the song works. So I think, yeah, mostly songwriting probably has to be somewhat introspective by its nature, I think.
Right. Mirroring something.
Yeah, something from inside you, sort of. I guess like something like that. Yeah.
A mirror inside you, sure.
Something like that. I don't know.
That's like that's a Pearl line right there, dude.
That does sound like, yeah, that could be the next Pearl album title. She had Magic Mirror.
We're not doing Magic Mirror anymore.
Mirror inside you.
That's it. It's done. It's good, but we're moving on, right?
Yeah, we got it.
But just throw the line out there if you're keen.
Oh right, yeah, we can do it. Yeah, sounds great. I'm into it.
Yeah, I do need co-writing credits on that though. I do need that. I will take you to court over that. But
our people will talk to your people.
It's litigation, and that's just what it is. That's yeah. I'm not gonna get
all of it. We always have to have many lawyers involved. Nothing can be done without a lawyer.
No. You know that's music, man. It's music. It's the business of making music.
That's art.
It has to be with lawyers. Everything's really formal. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
While you're writing too, you should have people there making sure that you don't infringe on anyone's copyright.
Yeah, you can't even use help in a song anymore. I'm trying to make that bill passed. Right. Yeah,
because of the song Help.
Yeah, because actually I kind of forgot about it until you just mentioned the Beatles.
The Beatles.
Yeah, right now.
Yeah, I forgot about it too.
Yeah,
and then I saw that they had a new movie out, and I remembered.
Yeah. Oh yeah. John Lennon saw my family once, dude. Yeah. I know.
Yeah, right. That was my people. They're telling them. They're telling him about me. This is a real Messiah complex starting right there.
Yeah, there it is. And that's when Michael started his own religion.
Yeah, exactly. Aliens came to John Lennon and told him that I was going to be born in like 20 years. Now I'm here. So I think this probably means we should move to a commune, and I get to do whatever I want to do, and the rest of you are my subjects.
And you're in the desert anyway, so the stage is set.
we're already here, and we're in California too. So I mean, like, this is the home of that type of thing. I've come to the right place.
Yeah, you're right where you need to be at the moment. When did you start writing this new album?
Oh, I think it was the end of 2018, right when we stopped touring the last album. I mean, some things have been written before that, but that was when I started to like really take stock of what I had in the vault and what I had like in the hard drive and and what I had in the and like where I wanted to go with it. So that was the very beginning of it, and it kind of was written over the course of that winter into 2019, and then I started to come down here and hang out with Pearl, and I kind of made the move down here, and then I went back to Edmonton a handful of times to write at my mom's house, mostly when Pearl would be on tour. So I would go back and write, and that was, I think that was basically when it was written, sometime between like the end of 2018 and by the end of 2019, like November 2019, I was starting to record it in New York. So and I think it must have been a little bit before that I finalized my songs and my choices for the record for the most part. So yeah, like a 6 or 7 or 8 month period where I really wrapped it up and figured it out.
Awesome, man. And then I mean, you said that you recorded some stuff in New York, but also in your home studio, right?
Yeah, it was recorded between a lot of places, actually. So it started out at Daptone, and it was basically just being recorded the same way as the previous record. We recorded the rhythm section at Daptone. I did maybe one more trip out there to do the first round of overdubs and vocals. And I had a lot of stuff planned in terms of like backup vocal parts, and things were arranged, maybe even more than the last record before, like on the demos. So I was like basically able just to go through and get it together. And then in March of 2020, we were doing our first round of recording in Riverside, which is the California. Ooh. In Riverside, Gabe has his California studio.
Very nice.
Gabe Roth, one of the founders of Daptone Records. And so
shout out to Gabe. Yeah, man.
Yeah, shout out to Gabe. So we're doing some work
I'll
there.
say it for you, Michael. I'll say it for you. Yeah, shout out to Gabe.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You got me. I got fucking, so we're there, we're recording, I was making this thing, and then fucking COVID happened, and we were basically put on hold indefinitely. We had thought we were going to mix the record probably in like April of 2020. And I think we thought we were pretty close to being done the record. Little did we know that wasn't what was in store for us. And ultimately everything got on hold. We had a couple months like dormant, waiting, figuring out what was going to go on, what was, what the next steps were going to be. Ultimately, I ended up getting given the record to work on independently. And I did some tracking in Pearl's bedroom. At the time, we didn't even have this house or anything really. So it was very bare minimum setup of me, like when no one was at the house, like setting up an amp and a mic and recording in a very like with everything like strewn around the room. And then I eventually went to Mac DeMarco's studio, because me and him know each other from like way back.
Mac the what? Mac
DeMarco.
Yeah.
Have you heard of him?
New guy, upcoming.
He's he's got a bright future ahead of him.
Well, I wish him well. Yeah.
He like, we know each other from Edmonton way back in the day. Our families are all old family friends and stuff like that. We played music together when we were teenagers.
We definitely talked about this, but we're going back. Yes, I remember we talked chicken pox, right?
Right. Yeah, he gave me chicken pox too. I wasn't even gonna get into the chicken pox, but that's true. He did give me chicken pox. I'm gonna get into
the conspiracy theories now, dude. Who gave it to him? I don't know. Where did it stem from?
Where did he get it from? I don't know. Maybe aliens. I'm not sure. But the
again, that lines up pretty clearly. Anyway,
it seems like there's no. This is like an Ancient Aliens when they have that one expert on. He was like, "Get this, aliens. It was because of aliens." And then you're like,
"It's probable."
Yeah, he's like, there's not really many other explanations.
The dude with the hair, that guy,
the guy with the crazy hair and the eyes. That dude.
He's always wearing a brown suit. I feel like brown suit.
Yeah, he always looks like he's trying to look official, like he's dressed to impress, but he doesn't really know like how to do that. He's mostly just spends most of his time like ripping bongs and talking about aliens.
Let me tell you this, dude. Hear me out. It's like, all right, yeah, I guess. Bring it to Science Channel or History.
Yes, it's the science. It's the Science of History channel. We were, yeah.
Anyways, back to
Mac.
Marco.
I went over to Mac's studio. We made some music. First time since we were teenagers that we kind of actively were able to like work on something together a little bit. Mostly, we were kind of thinking about trying to mix it there. That plan didn't really come about. We mostly just kind of messed with it and like brought things up in his studio and tried to mix it a little bit, but we overdubbed some stuff that made the record. So Mac played a little bit on the record at the end of the day, and some stuff that we just kind of collaborated on some ideas on it, like little things. And then after that, it went to Pearl's, this producer, Louis Pesakov's studio, who has produced Pearl and on her most recent record, The Magic Mirror, and everything since then as well. So I went and worked with him, and we did a bunch of stuff to it. And then eventually it got shipped off to James Valentine, who's a mixer in Austin, Texas, to work on it at the studio that the band White Denim owns. So it was mixed over there, and James Petrali from White Denim owns it. So that was the way that it ended up going. So it ended up taking like another year and a half or something of kind of reimagining the entire record after the time that we kind of thought we were done. So that was kind of the blessing and the curse of COVID as it pertained to this album, but that was how it kind of came to be.
Is it nice to have new people involved, it's like fresh blood within your project, the Michael Rault project?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's nice. It's great.
Whether it be in like musicians or like just, producing or mixing or mastering, whatever it may be.
Yeah, I think it's important to have that. I think so. I mean, I think it's cool to have long-standing relationships with collaborators as well, but very few of those, like when you think about just the history of music, very few collaborations last forever. Most of the time they last for we have certain records that was like, these two people made these records for like a year and a half, and then they did make records together, and those records are really cool. That's just kind of the way it goes. It's a very rare occurrence where you have like the Rolling Stones, something like that, where they stay together for 75 years or whatever, and
longevity.
And even then, they still work with different producers and have different people coming and going and different session players to try to keep it somewhat interesting for them. So yeah, I think you got to change it up. And I guess ultimately I changed, as I said before, I changed up everybody in terms of who surrounds me in the project right now by moving down here. So it's a real fresh period of time. And on top of that, it's also there's also a lot more people down here, and a lot more musicians and a lot more music stuff happening. So there's more ability to keep a fresh rotation of people, because there's just tons of people and tons of musicians. So it's a good place for that type of thing. But yeah, I do think that's important.
Keeping the revolving door open.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's good to keep it open. It should have a somewhat open door in life in general. Not too, obviously, you don't want to be too open. You don't want to lose your sense of, what's the word? I don't know, just your sense of independence, I guess, and your sense of, some amount of isolation is good. But I think it's good to keep an open door to new influences and new people, just in general, because otherwise things just get stale. The water's got to flow. Otherwise it's, gets stagnant.
Very true. Can't taste the flavor of the chapter as well. These are things.
True, exactly. Yeah. You got to let that thing refresh.
Yeah. And the title of it, it's just self-titled, right?
Self-titled record. Yeah.
When did you come like, all right, it's gonna be just Michael Rault?
Extremely last minute decision. There was different titles along the way. The final, it was kind of like there was a title, and there was reasons that between me and the label, we weren't fully happy with the title, back and forth. And I honestly didn't really care too much what the record was called, but I'd had my initial ideas. And by the time we were pitching ideas back and forth, we kind of got to a place where we were like, I don't know if the title that we're working with is going to make sense or going to work for various reasons. So then we started pitching around ideas. And ultimately, at the very end of it, when we were kind of pitching out ideas, I think everybody kind of unanimously was just like, it should just be self-titled. I've never made a self-titled record. The record seems like somewhat of like kind of equally at the beginning of a new chapter and the end of a previous chapter. So it seemed like a good time to just go the self-titled route and allow it just to be just my name. I've literally never done that before or thought of it before, which is weird. Most of the times people think about it early on in their career or in their
Yeah, it's an interesting approach. I like, because like this is like fourth or fifth album, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know where. It's a complicated
Number.
thing to know where to start counting. It's
Yeah.
like my first record that I ever put out was put out, like officially put out, was only put out in Canada. So if you count that one, which
I do.
no one really, hardly anyone knows down here, and then there
Is
was
it is that the one
that,
with you? You're like a crisscross, and it's a black and white picture of you.
it's
when
one
you're a
that's like
kid?
it's one that's like I'm like wearing shades on the cover, similar to, it's actually kind of weirdly similar in album cover to this album cover, but like different in a bunch of crucial ways. I didn't think about that until later, and like nobody will know that record, so it'll be lost on most people. But it is strangely like a weird similar album cover to my very first album cover that only came out in Canada. Then
Until
there
now,
was
everybody knows, Michael. Way to blow it, dude.
I mean, it'd be cool. I mean, if people want to track down the record, go for it. I don't think it's like, it's not as good as what I'm doing now, but you're welcome to go listen to it. But the
And you should go listen. You should whole discography. There's a whole bunch of songs to listen to.
I mean, there might be some good stuff in there if you want, if you feel the need to dive into it. But so that one, then there was Living Daylight, which was on Burger, which is my first. It was on Burger. It's actually not really anywhere anymore. But that was my very first American release. And then there was the first Daft record, and then so this is my fourth, if you go by my actual full lengths that were released through record companies at the time. That's basically where I'm at. And then there's a bunch of stuff before that, and in between occasional, like there's like, there's a bunch of EPs and singles and stuff that like I don't really know how much they actually count, so that's hard to say. But Liz was the fourth full-length album that I've actually seen to completion in my life. So
you could have just said I was correct. I said 4 or 5.
You're right. I just didn't remember.
Thank you. Yeah,
4 or 5, similar. Yes, exactly.
Very similar. No, man. The single's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, Neither Love Nor Money.
Thanks. I'm glad you like it, man.
I do. I wouldn't be saying it if I didn't. But also, I do appreciate the check. Thank you so much for endorsing it. When did you decide that was going to be one of the singles off the album?
I feel like I liked that one a lot from the moment that I wrote it. I wrote it sometime in that period of late 2018, early 2019 in Montreal. And I remember when I first wrote the demo, just being really excited about it. And it kind of was the beginning of writing in earnest for the record, I guess. It was like I'd done a little bit of work, and then I kind of took a like enforced break because I felt very exhausted from touring and very exhausted from trying to jump right back into making another record so that I could go on tour again. It was like, my workaholic side was like kind of driving me into the ground. And so I had to I stopped working for a while, and then I like suddenly had the inspiration to work, but like no idea of what I was going to make. And I actually basically made up the bass line with nothing else first. And as I made it up, I made the notes in the chorus, particularly the bass notes in the chorus, like particularly dissonant. And I thought it sounded really cool, but I was also like, how am I going to tie this together? And then I figured out keyboard parts that like softened the weirdness of it.
It's chunky, but it has like a leanness to it as well. If you concur with that, it was very blatant. Like the first time I listened, like, oh whoa, like that really jumped out at me for sure.
Yeah,
it's interesting that you started with the bass
ultimately
line.
It's like, I think it's funny because I didn't go about it trying to do this, but what I ended up doing, I think, is somewhat similar to like stuff that like Stevie Wonder does sometimes. I think it's kind of comes out of like gospel music. It's like a lot of passing bass notes and notes that are out of the scale, and then they land into things. But I kind of did it in this weird way where I just wrote a lot bass line that I thought felt cool, but it was very strange. I didn't know how it was going to work. So ultimately, by the time I finished putting the keys down on it, and then I kind of made up a melody, and then I wasn't sure what the song was going to be about. And then I like went outside and had a cigarette on my porch. And then the saying, like, for love nor money or whatever, or neither love nor money or whatever, came into my head. And I was like, that's the song. And then I like wrote the lyrics really fast, and I put it down. And from that point on, I was like really stoked on the song. That was one song that pretty much from the whole, sometimes things come later on that you're like, wait, maybe this song is a song. And sometimes things are immediate and then you decide you don't like it later. But this one was one thing that I felt like through the whole process of the record, I was like, that's probably going to be the first single, probably. So it was cool to be able to see it all the way through and basically, mostly capture what I think I was working on in the initial demo with the final version. So that's always a nice feeling.
That's a super interesting way of going about that. Like even just like beginning it, like, all right, let me try this weird bass line. Let me put some keys over it. And then everything just fell in. Like it seemed like you had a thing. You're like, all right, let me just see if I can immerse myself within this idea that I have. That's awesome.
No, totally. It was definitely like, I was like tricking myself into writing a song when I was reluctant about having to write new songs at that moment. It's definitely like, it was something that could have worked out not at all, or it could have worked out great, and luckily it worked out well. I had no idea, because I had no idea what I was writing about. I didn't have an idea. I just had the sudden impetus to actually try to write something again, and luckily that led to something that was pretty satisfying for me, at least. So that was, that's all I can ask for, really.
It's tasty, dude. It's tasty.
Thank you.
Yeah, super cool, man. Yeah, that's I think it's a strong one to lead off the new album with, for sure.
Well, yeah, I'm glad you think so. I think I felt, I talked to a few people that I know when I was planning out the actual singles and stuff like that, and a few people that I trust about this kind of stuff. And it was generally the consensus that it was cool to lead with that one because it's quite different than the last record. So it's kind of nice to like open it up with something that seems, refreshingly different. I think this record's very different than the last record in general, but there's moments that'll be slightly more familiar to the production leanings of the previous album, and then there's moments like this that lean into a kind of a different area of similar influences, but a slightly different area. I definitely didn't have anything that was kind of leaning into like slightly more disco, dancey, funky stuff on the last record. I mean, there's some funkiness on the last record, but it's more rock.
It's hinting at it, and not like, here it is, which is, I mean, that's such an interesting like take on it, especially just be like, all right, I'm doing something way, like, not way different, like I've been hinting towards it, but like, here it is. This is not like the last album at all. And I mean, did you feel that like, all right, this is like way different than what I was previously doing, or were you like, like it's within my realm that I'm comfortable with, but I'm kind of getting outside of it a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I guess like with this record, I think I found a new area of inspiration in certain ways that I think when I was when I was just off of like, years of working on the previous record and then a year of touring it, I think I was like a little bit, I think maybe for a while I was kind of going back to the same ideas, and it was just not really bringing me much excitement. It was kind of getting to the point where it's like, really, are you gonna, the part of my consciousness was like watching me do it and being like, are you really gonna make me live another 5 years of doing the same thing that you just made me do for the last 5 years? Like, is that really what our plan is now? There was like certain things, and there are some moments of my guitar harmonies, like guitar harmonies and stuff that is like,
I was right with you. You didn't have to explain that. I was like, yep, I know exactly what he means by that.
Yeah, there's moments of my guitar harmonies on this record still and stuff like that, and it's something that I do a lot on a lot of projects that I work on. And that'll probably always be something that I do to some degree sometimes. But on the last record, for whatever reason, the phase that I was in, it was literally like every time there was a space on the record, like there was just like, something should go here. I was just like, guitar harmony. And it was like, oh, wait, what should we put here? I was like, guitar harmony. And it was just like always the perfect answer to everything. And every time you do it, you just be like, yes, that's exactly what should go there. This is fucking rad. And then with this record, I think like one of the early things I demoed, it wasn't Neither Love Nor Money, but one of the other ones in that same period of time that I was demoing, I remember there was a break and I was like, all right, like guitar harmony part. And I like went in and started doing it. And I was like, this just doesn't work. And so that was like, it's just a weird moment of being like, okay, well, what am I going to do? What else can I do to try to fill this out without like, I was like, maybe big wall of harmony stuff. And I was like, no, that's also not really, it was like all the regular tricks that had been working for the last record. I was like, really is not the answer right now. So then it was like developing a whole new area of, just different tricks and different ideas of things that kind of were interesting to me, instead of feeling like I was just like, rehashing the same things over and over again. So ultimately it is a very different record because of all that. But at the same time, it's also a record that was made by the same person, with a bunch of different cast of characters, some the same as the last time, some different. But mostly it's, the main vision and direction of it is largely coming out of the same person's brain, who started making it very shortly after the whole process of the last album cycle. So it has to have some similarities. There's definitely some things that are the same, but there's just some things that are different. And for me, that's necessary. Otherwise, I would just have to. I don't know if I could drag myself through another record that sounded like the last record. That would just be inhumane torture, I think.
It's good though. The always towards the new, which is awesome, man. And it's not. It seems like you're not like, all right, no, now everything that you knew is done. I'm on to this path. You're not doing that, which is fantastic. It's not like I completely just done with all my old sound. This is what it is now. I mean, at least it's not like that, which is fantastic.
Yeah. It's not a conscious thing. It's not like me being like, I'm completely changing everything now. It's just like, just to stay, you're just trying to keep it authentic. You just want to feel what you're doing. So then a certain amount of change is necessary, but I think a certain amount of similarity is also necessary, because ultimately you can't really change everything that's going on. If you're still allowed to be involved in it, it's going to still somewhat be similar. So, and I still have a lot of the same taste. It's like, it's not like I completely now hate all the records that I was really influenced by on the last record. But I might not be listening to them quite as much. And there's other things that have bled into the listening rotation that have like slowly seeped in, that then by the time a few years have passed and you have a new record, you're like, I'm probably listening to like a vastly different selection of music now, even with some of the favorites still sprinkled in. And I'm thinking about vastly different things, but it's just all, very gradual over the course of years that it all happens. So it's all connected, but it just kind of changes.
Awesome. Is there gonna be another single before the album's release in its entirety?
Yeah, there's gonna be 2 more.
Ooh, a thrice release. Nice.
Yeah,
man.
3 singles, and then the record's gonna drop quite shortly thereafter, the 3rd single.
Awesome. That's gonna be awesome, dude. Did I say awesome yet? I meant to say awesome.
I think you might have said awesome. That's great though. I'm glad you think it's awesome. I'm excited about it too, actually.
I didn't want to hear great that time, Michael. You know what I wanted to hear.
It's awesome.
Spectacular. No, that was not what I wanted to hear.
It's awesome. I think it's awesome that it is finally coming out, and I think it's awesome that you like it. And I've gotten a lot of positive response for it so far, which is just really affirming and a nice experience. It's nice to finally have it out. It sat on the shelf for a long time, even after its extended period of being made. So
it had time to simmer, and then now it's out.
Yeah, exactly. It simmered in many different ways. And the fact that it's out and thus far people are seeing, what I hoped they would see in it was like a fun and cool progression of things, then, that's a really nice feeling. But it kind of is a bit of a load off my brain a little bit, just to kind of be like, it makes me feel a little bit more free to move on to other things and keep moving forward in my life, because there isn't this thing that's just like such a huge part of my life and last few years, just like hanging there
on the back burner. It's
just there. And you're just like, when is that gonna, like, what's gonna happen when that comes out? You just like, it's a constantly part of your sort of like day-to-day thought process for like a long time. So it's cool that it, when it finally comes out, and thus far people seem to think it's cool. That's a nice feeling.
Yeah, and now you can just like start stressing about the next one, which is good.
Totally
redirect that energy onto another album.
I think that I might be getting slightly better, not stressing out about it all the time. I think as it gets a little bit more, have a few more under my belt, you start to like, you still have the same stressful situations, but it's like not the first time you've had that. So you're kind of like, all right, I'm about to lose my mind because this thing is driving me crazy now. And I feel like I should quit music and smash all of my gear and set the house on fire. But I'm not going to do that this time, because I feel like last time I felt like that, it worked out somehow to some degree. It always works out, always less, it always works out somewhere between the best case scenario and the worst case scenario. I haven't encountered either yet. So you can generally bear with it and get through it some way or another.
That's great, man. Yeah, that album's really going to be cool.
Thanks, man.
But
Appreciate it.
we touched on this before. You kind of touch on it, but the tour with Which, the recent one. I mean, it's very recent. How did that go?
Oh, it was great. It was really fun.
With your best friend Nick, as we all know.
With my best friend Nick, whose mom is named. We it was great.
It's fine. We know that you know, but I don't think, because if you put it out there, then Nick's gonna be like, "How do?" Okay, obviously you know my mom, so we've.
I also don't know. I didn't follow up. I didn't even follow up. That also shows to a certain element of my character that he said, "I don't know your mom's name. You don't know my mom's name," and I didn't ask what his mom's name was. I was like, "Good point." And that's the end of the conversation.
You should have just left it as like, "Oh yeah," like I like just perceived it to me like yes, and then I learned his mom's name and I've known it since. That's what you should have projected to me, but you didn't, and you're an honest man, Michael.
Yeah, I was basically just like, yeah, that's interesting. That's an interesting idea. And then I, went on and did something else and didn't think about it again until now. This also is not something I talk about all the time. It came to mind today because we're talking about this. So, but I'm
glad. Again, I said this before a lot, like recently. It's all about just like bringing up old memories. Like, oh yeah, that happened. I love that.
Yeah,
when that happens on here.
Great. It's a nice way to converse. It's fun to have just the free flowing, free form stream of consciousness.
I just want people to know it is not free form at all. It's very stressful. I expect a lot from my guests, and I mean, the vetting process is just rigorous. I mean,
don't try this at home. You can't do it. Don't start a podcast. You'll fail.
No. I mean, I'm still just. I'm drowning here right now, but
no, you're doing a great job. At least I just want the people at home to know not to try to do this. It's a you're gonna suck at it, so don't do it.
It's bad. Don't. Yeah, I mean, you can never live up to me. I mean, look at me.
I'm just kidding. You're doing a great job. People at home should do it. Make a podcast.
Definitely do it. And I mean that. That's a legitimate thing. It's very fun. Yes. But anyways, Michael, go ahead. Which tour? Your best friend Nick.
I'm just busy like talking about how I don't care what Nick's mom's name is and that people shouldn't make podcasts because they don't have any talent.
And that was the whole tour. And then I got home and it was fun.
and the tour was great. I'm just kidding. Everyone's great. I encourage everyone to follow their hearts. I'm genuinely curious what Nick's mom's name is now. And the tour was very fun. I mean, Which is just, a legendary band. And it's the second time I've toured with them, with one-off right before COVID as well. But so I've done a few sort of little, one very small trip with them and two longer trips around the States with them. This is the first one I'd done with them since COVID. So I hadn't seen any of them in a really long time. It was quite a trip to see them. And then it was cool too, because like the last tour was really good. People really like that band and people come out and they're excited and really grateful for us to play, which is really fun to play playing in like a legacy band that has a following already is a cool thing to do. Like people
are stoked to see still, even without the original members, which is like such a weird niche that people aren't like, fuck this. It's not the, it's true. No, it's all good. It's just like,
I mean, there's there's one original and one actual from original era, but not like original African members. Mm-hmm. And then there's a bunch of Europeans, and then there's one Canadian in me. Sometimes when I'm with them, that's the breakdown. And that's and I think people are open to it because this isn't me really taking credit for this. Like this credit should mainly go towards Jaco Gardner and towards Nick and towards Gio, the manager, all the people who started this whole incarnation of Which up with Jaggery, the original singer, and with Patrick, the disco era lead singer and band leader. But so I'm not blowing my own horn when I say that they do it really well. That's like ultimately that's why it works, is because it's like a bunch of it's the original spirit is provided by having Jaggery and Patrick available and part of it, and really still operating in still like functioning and playing at a really high level. They're really like good at what they do, and they're still able to do it at a very high level with tons of energy. I mean, Jaggery goes off every show, just goes crazy, and has more energy as a 70-year-old right now than I do as a however old I am, like on this tour, and like it's like he's doing that, and then on top of that, then you have a bunch of young musicians who are all have all figured out how to have their own bands and do like a good job of like touring and able to present a certain style of music well. And so the combination of that, I think, really wins over the skeptics pretty quickly thus far in my experience. Because, I definitely had some people tell me when I first told them I was going to go on tour with W.I.T.C.H, they're like, who's in the band? Like, is there anybody from W.I.T.C.H that's in W.I.T.C.H? And you're like, yeah, there's like 2 people. But it works out well, I think. I mean, I think the shows are fun. Like, I think I wouldn't be very satisfied touring with that band if it was just kind of a thing where you're like, well, the records are great. The performance that we're doing isn't really that good, but hey, if you just come and kind of like squint in a certain way and like tilt your head to a certain angle, you might kind of like it a little bit. But it's actually like a fun band to play in, and there's like a real genuine live performance happening of that material with a bunch of the original people. That's like, I think is like a worthwhile show to see. So, and the first tour was really good already, like before COVID, and then this tour was a lot bigger. The rooms were a lot bigger, a lot more people. So I guess over the last 2 years, the already formidable legend of W.I.T.C.H has grown even more, and more people know about it. So it was, which I wasn't even really expecting. I thought like if it was like the last tour, that'll be great and sounds good. But then it was even bigger and better. So that was kind of a surprise and a pleasant one. So yeah, I mean, touring with W.I.T.C.H is definitely a pleasure. Whenever I can do it, I'm always game to go on tour with those guys.
You're telling me you need an alien in your band to really make it explode. You said the last 2 years, and that seems right about the time that you joined, Michael. I don't know, dude.
That might have helped.
I'm just saying, dude.
I mean, I think I have very little to do with it, but it is really fun to play with them. It's great.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've seen the videos, just like little snippets. And just like you can like feel that there's an energy there. Like just viewing it.
The thing is too is the crowd really brings
party.
a lot of energy, especially like in certain places. Like they've gotten on a lot of skate videos and a lot of like surf videos and stuff over the last. It's been, I think, like a decade or maybe a bit more since they were reissued, like worldwide, after just being put out like in
a local press,
Zambia, really.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's been like it's been growing for like 10 years or more that people have been finding these records since it's been reissued. But it's in that time it's really caught on with skaters and with surfers, which then has like a real like youthful element to the crowd, and more so than any like most bands I play in. It's like we were like kids are like crowd surfing, they're going nuts, they're like came like ready to party, they're like have a certain like rambunctious rowdy spirit that goes along with the the culture of skating and stuff like that, which have never been a part of, but I've always admired and like thought was cool.
Admired from afar, sure.
Yeah, exactly. And like everybody thinks skateboarding is cool. It's like the coolest thing to do. I don't do it, but it's cool, like inarguably. And so it's really fun to play for people. I mean, it's crazy. You go up on the first show we played was like around San Diego, like Sonoma Beach or something like that, I think. And we were like, that was the craziest crowd maybe I've ever played to, like sold out show, and people were just going nuts, and they were like wasted and just like reaching up to grab us and crowd surfing, and someone threw a bra on stage at Jaggery. Like it was just a complete gong show, and we were just like, it's just like it's not hard to get the energy up when you just like step out on stage for the first show and that's what's going on. Like it's like you don't have to bring the energy, you just have to go up there and play, and everyone is going to go completely nuts. And so that that's a fun thing. It's a cool thing that I'm grateful I was able to experience with that band.
Yeah, it seems like a very, very special thing to be a part of, and that's awesome. That's really, really cool. And sometimes publishing, I saw, was kind of was peeking around some different shows and whatnot on this last tour, which is that'll be interesting.
Yeah. We really like those guys. I met those guys through W.I.T.C.H on the first tour that I did with them when we were in Philly, and we've all stayed in touch, and they ended up coming down and doing some like photo shoots and stuff at the studio when I was recording at Daptone all those years back when I was starting this record. And they've been really supportive of my project and really supportive of Pearl's project, and really supportive of W.I.T.C.H and really supportive of all of the offshoots of everybody who's involved in W.I.T.C.H. And
super cool.
Yeah, they're just great guys.
And their magazine's rad. Go check it out if you haven't. Sometimes Publishing Magazine.
I'm a big fan. I have a bunch of copies. I love them.
Yeah, I do too. I just brought my boy Cameron. I just brought him a copy of the recent All Laws one. So definitely go check them out and support them.
I've
Billy,
seen some of those. I don't own that one, but I've seen some of the articles on it. Like special article on Tim Hill, right, and everything with the
yeah,
Allaha's and everything.
yeah.
Who I was touring with Paint not too long ago. Really
Tim
liked
Hill's
that
the
guy.
man.
Love his music. It seemed like it was a great issue.
And go listen to the Tim Hill interview that I did with him, maybe 2018, perhaps.
He's just a cowboy living out here on the range.
Living.
Is he talking about horses and shit?
No, we didn't talk about that. But he.
How long ago did you do the interview?
He was not doing what he's doing right now when we did it. I mean, this is like, yeah, 2018. So yeah, it's quite a bit ago now. But I mean, still just super nice. Yeah, good.
Now he's just living with the horses and living like a cowboy life. He's like full out cowboy man.
Yeah, I mean, and he looks right at home doing it.
Yeah, he does. He does.
Awesome. Yeah, go check out his music.
He looks like a cross between the Marlboro Man and Levon Helm. He kind of got that. He's got that combination.
Yeah, and he's slick with the drums, dude. I didn't know that he's like so good at it. Just groovy.
I guess he played in like hardcore bands as a drummer when he was a kid.
Really?
And then he came back to the drums for that Paint tour to bail Pedram out because Pedram didn't have a band.
That's awesome. Yeah, and go check out Paint, obviously.
Paint too. And Pedram, shout out Pedram, he's the best. All those guys are the best.
Paint 2 and Paint 2.
Everybody now.
The album. Paint 2 and Paint 2. Both are great.
Great, yes.
Yeah. Spiritual Vegas. Have you heard that album? It's pretty good. I definitely recommend it, Michael.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I heard that album. I've heard that album a lot. That's probably it's one of those albums that's probably gonna come out as like my top album of the year on Spotify because I had to learn all the material. I'm always like, oh yeah, right. I listened to that. You listened to this album 10,052 times or whatever, and you're like, oh, yeah, I did. It's true.
It's not bad when we listen to that many times.
No, it's great. It was a pleasure. It was a pleasure to learn, pleasure to play, pleasure to hang with those guys. Really good crew. Actually ran into them in Boise when I was on tour with W.I.T.C.H because they were also playing the Tree Fort Fest. And
dude, so many people were on that thing.
It was crazy. It was really funny. I was like walking with one group of friends, and then the Paint van like pulled up, and they all got out. And we're like, hey, and I was like, whoa. And then I was like, another group of people who were, I think, also like the Jared Mattson crew who were opening or on that tour with us with Paint were then also walked out of a door at the same time. So like it was like, and then there was like another person. It was like people from all over the place were just like coming out of all these places on this corner, and then I was like drunkenly like trying to like say hi to everyone at the same time, but I'd also just gotten really drunk, like unnecessarily drunk, and was like just like kind of like unable to handle it, but really excited to see everybody. But all great people. It was a great time. And also Tree Fort. Shout out Tree Fort. That was a great festival.
That had a lot of good people on there. Yeah. That would have been a sight to see. And in Idaho, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's fun. So I've been there with my band once before for the festival, and then I've been to Boise a bunch of times. Boise's usually pretty good. Boise, I like Boise.
I like Idaho. I've been to Yellowstone once. It was cool. Yeah. Our
show with Paint on that Paint tour in Boise was not good. That was I told everyone that it was going to be great, and then it was not good. And I was like, Boise always is great, but they had never played Tree Fort. I think the crucial thing is you got to play Tree Fort to then meet people and get to know Boise and get to know the good side of Boise's. But usually Boise's great.
Yeah. Shout out to Boise, Tree Fort, all of it. We're talking about we are really talking about everybody now. I mean,
we've got everybody that I've interacted with in the last 6 months, I think, basically covered.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
But that's only scratching the surface. What about your mailman? You know your mailman? Did you see him in there?
I don't have a mailman. I only get mail to Pearl's mom's house in LA because, and I think we probably could get mail here now, but because of like the hangover from when this was a sketchy area, everyone was like, oh no, you get your mail stolen in Landers, like for sure. So I was like, okay, well, we're not going to get anything sent here. So we have been kept to that. So I really don't have a mailman. I only have whatever mail men and ladies deliver in Los Angeles to Pearl's mom's house, who I don't interact with at all because I just pick up the packages when I'm in Los Angeles and bring them to here.
Seems like you don't choose to, but that's your right. It's fine. I mean,
I've chosen to exclude a personal relationship with any mailman up until right now.
It's kind of rude. It's kind
I
of
know
rude,
it's kind
Michael.
of rude.
Yeah, very rude. But
Well,
going back to what we were originally talking about here, which is
what were we
which
talking about again?
which in the
Which?
tour. Um,
Yes.
and you said that you had done a couple of a tour or two with them before this tour, or at least a tour and a couple of shows. But how did that feel when you were first recruited into that whole group there?
Pretty mind-blowing, and especially because this is like a weird magic story. I don't really know how to like it sounds unbelievable, but it's 100% true. Swear on, whatever people swear on. I don't know, I can't think
Boise,
of anything good right now.
Treefort
But
Fest.
I just met Pearl. I was hanging out in Joshua Tree before we lived here. It was in Pioneer Town at the place that her family has here, and we were there, and we took some 2CB, which is like a designer psychedelic drug, which I'd never done before or since. And it is very like lucid, but extremely hallucinogenic high. And I had in the midst of many conversations and many things while we're hanging out, just the two of us at this house in the middle of the desert with like the stars out, I was like, this ties back into Nick. It was Nick who was the reason that I tied in with the band. And for some reason that night I was like, Nick, he used to play drums with Jakob Gardner. I need to talk to that guy for some reason. Like, I just like, that guy's just on my mind for some reason. I'm thinking about Nick. And then I like went on about it for long enough and explained all the people that like he'd played with that she would know and stuff, like for long enough that it made an impression on her, even though she was probably sitting there being like, why are we talking about this? Let's move on to anything else. And it's like she did not know the guy, and I'm like going off about this guy that she's never met before. And then in the morning, I woke up and I rolled over, and Pearl was still asleep, and I like picked up my phone and I was like, Pearl. I was like, I remember I was talking about that guy Nick, and she was like, yeah. And I was like, I haven't texted him. I haven't talked to him in years. And I was like, but Nick just messaged me, and she was like, whoa, what does it say? And I was like, I don't even know. I have what? I don't know. And I checked, and then I was like, oh, it says that he wants me to play in Witch. And we were both like, whoa, that's fucking crazy. So that was like, I was stoked. It was really cool. I had no idea what I was getting into. It was it's just like kind of like, I am now going to meet all like, this it's a ragtag crew. It's a odd group. You're touring with people from a huge range of ages and a huge range of cultural background, which is a very unusual group to all just pile into a touring band and go on tour together. Usually it's like 5 guys from the same neighborhood who know each other,
Forever, yeah. And then,
so
but you're like, nah,
let's
get people from all different countries and backgrounds, and even musical backgrounds, really, as well.
Yeah,
it's a whole melting pot. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, it's fun. So I mean,
really,
it started
really cool.
with that crazy magical coincidence or synchronicity or whatever it was, and then it has carried on till until now. And I'm gonna go. I'm actually not playing in their band with them because they're using the other 2 European guitar players on the next American tours. But I'm going out opening for them for some of the dates on the West Coast tour in June. So it's gonna be another chapter of the wild and wacky adventures of Witch and Michael.
I'd watch that show. How different do you feel when you're on a long tour, such as like a month or a month and a half or just whatever, whatever the longest run you've done, rather than just doing it like a 1 or 2 night show, like every once in a while? Is there a major difference? Do you feel like more detached from it when you're not on the road and just like playing a show like, oh, Thursday night I'm at Pappy and Harriet's or whatever, as opposed to like, no, Thursday I'm in Boise, Friday
we are playing Pappy and Harriet's with Witch and LeClaire and me actually on that tour, which is gonna be sick. My first time at Pappy.
Isn't that interesting that I just mentioned that? Just all of
a
sudden.
Yeah, that's gonna be awesome. I mean, that will be a local show for us, but we will be on tour, so it'll be passing through home.
It's home court right there, home field advantage.
Home court can be nice. I think one of my least favorite things is one-off shows. One-off shows often are like really odd because you just don't get into the rhythm of being in a band and like thinking about stuff that bands think about all the time. Everyone's just living their own life, and then they're all like just kind of like, okay, and then I'll meet you at the venue at this time, and then you kind of like have to like sort of like take a weird side step into band life and then try to play a show. And like oftentimes it usually goes well, and I think it can be an enjoyable experience for everybody involved, but at the same time it never feels quite the same as touring. And touring in itself, I think a long tour is like the height of existence as a musician, and the lowest low, the depth of existence as a musician, like simultaneously. Because I think you kind of simultaneously are worn down physically and exhausted, and like maybe a little bit like more depressed than usual, and like slightly like more just spent. You're just like, just everything you have is just constantly going into this, keeping this train rolling on the road. And it's like and all of this stuff, it just really wears on you. But then on the other hand, as a band, and the performance and stuff just can grow and become so much more tight, and oftentimes is some of the most enjoyable experiences of like actually just playing music are 3-4 weeks into a tour. I think those shows start to become both more tight and more loose in the best of ways. You know each other well enough, you know what can happen. You've gone through a number of weird experiments, or maybe even made mistakes on previous nights early on in the tour that then you're like, that mistake was almost kind of cool. So then when somebody actually does the same thing again, you like all know it, and then you start doing it. There's like enough like weird things like that can happen that are like really spontaneous and cool, because you're all just thinking about this set like all the time, and this material all the time. And there's also the tightness of just like, you at a certain point how the songs go, and unless you decide to go off on some weird explorative jam thing, you could just nail that set in your sleep. So that is like one of the best experiences as a musician. But definitely being on tour for an extended period as like an individual, as a human, is pretty hard on you, in my experience, in my opinion.
So I mean, it does take a night or two, or maybe even up to a week or two of just kind of finding the rhythm of being together, and like just kind of hashing it out. It's like, all right, like this should flow like this, instead of how it was whatever 2 nights ago or whatever it may be.
I think it improves. I mean, I guess there's there's maybe something that I'm discounting as like a musician and as a band member, that like maybe there's something that's magical in the very first night, because of the like spontaneous element of it, and the fact that things were a little bit less guaranteed. There's a little bit more of like a sense of like, is this completely going to go off and like
uneven ground,
completely fall apart and go off the rails, and we're going to be totally like left up here just like standing around being like, wow, that obviously was a complete fuck up and everyone knows it, which usually doesn't happen. But there's the possibility of that maybe provides some sort of excitement that maybe is lost later on. But in my opinion, I think that after a little while on the road, the band just can get really tight, and the grooves, like you kind of are feeling it, like you kind of just know exactly where everything's going to be, and it feels great. And so that's a bonus of touring and playing with good musicians.
And is the camaraderie between people in the tour like very crucial? Is that like a key component of like making it run well, that everybody's kind of gelling?
I think that there's the potential for people who don't get along as individuals to be very good, have good chemistry musically, even if they don't have good chemistry in other ways. But I think that in terms of touring and having a good, successful tour, it's probably for the best if everyone gets along well. I personally would not enjoy being on a tour with a bunch of people who don't like each other. You have to spend so much time with each other. I mean, I think that my life is somewhat unique in the sense that like I'm thrown into groups like W.I.T.C.H and stuff where I do know them quite well, but I don't hang out with all of them as much as they probably all hang out with each other. So I get thrown into situations where I'm like the sort of fresh member, and then I just live in the same bedrooms and van and dressing rooms with those people for like 3 weeks, which I think is like a very unique lifestyle that kind of like, it's impossible for it not to change you. It's like you join a different family that like is like, you're like a 7-person family who like lives in one house. Like, it's like being in a large family with a small house for relatively short amount of time, not like growing up with them for like 18 years or whatever, but like you are going to be somewhat like affected and changed to some degree by being in such close quarters with
yeah.
so many people with strong, with strong personalities and lots of interests and very developed in their craft and stuff like that and in their art. So it's like it's a really unique thing just to get thrown in with people like that.
Being the surrogate child to this family.
Yeah. I mean, it's been that way with Paint and with Witch and with Pearl a little bit at first, although obviously me and Pearl had our own like strong connection already. But at the same time, when I first started playing with her, I was kind of like just get in the van with the band that I've rehearsed with a couple times, and now we're all just hanging out. And now that band is like family, and they play with me and they play with Pearl. But like, initially it was kind of similar, where it was like, I don't know these guys that well. They all know Pearl, and Pearl knows me. So let's all now just like live in a vehicle together.
Yeah, that's interesting. How long were you guys dating before you started touring with her?
Well, I guess we did the touring mostly after COVID, so I'd actually gotten to know everybody a lot better by that point in time. But the first time I played with her, the first couple times I played with her was solo, so it was completely independent, like her duo, I mean, but it was completely independent of the rhythm section, and so they didn't really know me still. And then we must have done like a rehearsal or two when I got thrown into the group when they needed a guitar player for something. And then I think the first time was a show at the Ace Hotel in Palm Springs, and we drove up there, and it was a fun experience, but it was definitely like a bonding experience between me and the rhythm section that had up until that point probably didn't really know each other that well, and met a handful of times and said like, oh, hi, yeah, nice to meet you, you're Pearl's bass player. And they're like, hey, Pearl's boyfriend. Cool. And then we started playing together, and we now at this point in time have a lot of experience hanging out and playing together, and we're all good friends.
And they help you play as well on your,
and they played my
tours.
band too. Yeah, they'll be on the Witch tour backing me up, and on the next round, all the shows, foreseeable shows right now is going to be well, actually, so it's going to be Pearl's going to be involved. She's going to be helping out. And then
awesome.
Dustin Booketts, her bass player, will be playing bass. Ryan Miller, her drummer, will be drumming. And then
yeah.
I've brought a new person into the fold who's going to start playing in Pearl's band and in my band. This guy, Jake Miles, who just moved from Austin, who we got connected through friends, and he's a great guitarist. And so he's going to be the additional guitarist. And who knows what else we'll get into. Maybe we'll both play some keys and stuff. I'm not sure, but
I'll see what happened with Jake. He was like, man, I used to know Michael. He was dating this chick. He took a little bit of mushroom. He's like, man, I gotta hit him up. And then you hit him up, and then he had your.
That's how it happened. That's how it happened.
I already know it, dude. I feel it.
His dad actually is a really cool musician, and his dad showed him my music. Was actually awesome. How the connection was.
Wow.
And his dad used to play in the Grateful Dead before John Mayer joined, which is crazy. I didn't realize all this till much later, but I was like, wait a second. So your dad played with the Grateful Dead for a long time, and he was the guy who showed you my music and thought my music was cool? And he was like, yeah. So he has a crazy musical history with his family, and it makes sense because he's an extremely talented musician who has a lot of cool projects going on and stuff in his own right. And I mean, him and Dustin and Ryan and Pearl, I'm very grateful and lucky to be able to rely on them to play with me for all the times that I have and for all the times that I will. It's been a very cool thing to be able to have such talented musicians who have so many cool things going on for themselves.
Really cool. It's awesome, man. Here we go back to awesome, dude. I felt like I got it out of my system.
Awesome.
An hour ago, but I didn't.
It's all good. I'm digging it. Let's keep it coming.
Going back to this new album though, it's gonna be released on two different. It's what was it? WIC Records, and with the new one, the new record label as well. The
Majestic Silk, the Canadian label.
Silk, yeah.
Used to be Sleepless Records, now it's Majestic Silk, but it's the same label as the last album for Canada. It's for many reasons it's good to have a Canadian label for Canadian artists in Canada, and they do a really great job. They're on a great label up there, and then of course WIC Records, subsidiary of Daptone Records, is going to be the worldwide outside of Canada label, and very happy to be working with both of them again, even if one of them changed their name.
That's rad. Yeah, new name, same people, great people behind that. That's really cool, dude.
Exactly.
Do you still feel attached to the music in Alberta, in Canada in general,
Uh,
or Edmonton, if we need to get specific here?
Kind of not, but not because I don't. I mean, well, yes and no, because I do feel attachment to it because I come from there, and I have a lot of still have some friends who are there, although a lot of my friends who play music moved. So a lot of my scene is like a lot of the people I grew up playing music with are not there any longer. You know, Mac has gone on to do what he's done. Home Shake, like Peter Sagar, has gone on to do what he's done and is living off in other parts of the world. I'm off living in other parts of the world. Sean Nicholas Savage is God knows where. I think he's touring Europe right now, but you know, he's lived all over the place. So
He's
it
been out and
isn't like I
about,
go
man.
back there
Yeah.
and I'm like back into the scene that I grew up with, because that scene isn't really there anymore. Although there are some people that I do know and, you know, and love and have connections to who are still working there. My dad still plays music and like plays stuff around there and stuff like that. So in that regard, I feel kind of connected to it too. And I feel like a solidarity and a solidarity and camaraderie, I suppose, with it as a place, because I grew up there and I spent a lot of my life there. I still spent, you know, I've been living away for a long time, but I've still spent more than half of my life in that city before I moved. So I spent more time there than anywhere else. And so I think I can relate to people there and stuff. But at the same time, I've spent less and less time there. And I'm not like fully abreast of and knowledgeable about what's happening in the scene on a day-to-day basis and what's going on. So, you know, it's just kind of the funny thing. You move from home and then you slowly, it's like when you first move from home, I think you like you feel more comfortable at home and you know more about what's happening at home than the new place you've moved. And then you keep, you know, and then at some point you start to get more comfortable in the new place. And for me, I've now moved to like subsequently a couple other places and now to a completely different country. And like, and I have never gone back and lived in Edmonton since I was like 21 or something. So you know, it's a weird thing. I feel so close to it and know it so well, but also am so distant from it and really don't know what's going on there. So, but you know, I'm actually like, I'm going to be going back there to play a show that's not announced yet at some point in time. So I won't say too much about it, but you know, that's promoted by a guy that I've known since, since I was very young living there and stuff. So it's like, there's still a lot of people that I know who are still working there. And I still have tons of, you know, affection towards them and tons of respect to them for like keeping the scene alive there and doing good work to like, to, you know, nurture the creative talent that comes out of Edmonton. So yeah, I kind of feel, yeah, that's basically how I feel about it. And then to a lesser degree, the same thing, I guess, towards Toronto and Montreal when I was living, like I lived in those places for less time and it was more recent. So the same thing, but slightly different with all of those places.
Sure. Yeah. That is really cool. I mean, and there's a lot of bands. I mean, just around that area. I mean, not just Edmonton, but just in Canada while you were there, which is like, I mean, that's really, really cool to have like a thriving scene and it when wherever you are. I mean, that's
Yeah,
really
I
cool
mean,
to be a part of that
Edmonton,
niche.
Edmonton and Montreal both had sort of massive Edmonton kind of via Montreal because it was like Tops had people from Edmonton. Mac is from Edmonton. Home Shake is from Edmonton. There might even be more that I'm forgetting about right now. Sean Nicholas Savage. All of those bands kind of all blew up as Montreal bands, but it was surprising how many of them were from Edmonton. So that was an interesting era of Edmonton being, you know, finding success. Edmontonians finding success in Montreal and then finding, to various degrees, international success out of Montreal, kind of as a launch pad.
Definite international success with everybody that you named. Yeah. All those
Yeah.
three people. Yeah. Very, very successful. Which is that's just wild that you're a part of that like time in that and you know and of course like every place has their like, oh my gosh, like such and such is from there and so is them and all these other, you know, like all these different people are from the same place is very common to see, but it's like once in a blue moon, like it doesn't spark that wide very often, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I think that our generation that grew up in Edmonton was a pretty special generation. It was kind of like, I remember thinking that they were all really good and being really inspired by the people that I was around at a certain point in my late teens, early 20s. And then they all just kind of proved me right by continuing to become more and more successful. Like I was like, I kind of feel like I like these guys, like, or these people's, girls and guys' songs better than I like most other things I hear. And then, as it turns out, it's like, well, yeah, Mac DeMarco's going to be one of the biggest names in indie music, like
Yeah.
in the entire world. And you're like, well, I guess it makes sense. I always thought he was good. I always thought he was better than most people.
You called it, man.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you've gained success through your career in music?
Me personally?
You personally?
Yeah, I have.
However you define that, however you look at that, however, whatever success is to you.
I've found, I haven't succeeded as much as some people have, but I haven't, I mean, in terms of like sheer metrics of sales and streams and ticket sales and stuff like that. But I also succeeded more than some people have. So, I mean, I'm grateful for the fact that I'm grateful for the fact that it's going as well as it is. I also feel like I've found a path in my life that's like enjoyable and meaningful to me. And it's sort of like, it isn't there's no like ceiling to it. There's no like glass ceiling or anything like that. There's no sense of like, I can't go any further, I'm stuck and now I have to stop doing it. There's always like a sense of potential for expansion, both like artistically and to some degree financially, although it's like I haven't like made any like the amount of financial growth that I've made in my life isn't like going to be like making any impact with like Forbes magazine or anything like that. No actual business people are going to care at all about me and my growth in terms of my finances and my art and everything. And also when I speak about finances, I'm only talking about the ability to like afford to make the music that I want to make, really is all like that I'm really like interested in, more or less. I mean, maybe at some point in time it'd be nice to make more, but
sure, but that's not
like
that's
immediately
not the goal
on the horizon.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's like not the goal right now, but like it'd be nice, of course.
It would be nice, yeah. But I
Yeah.
mean, obviously, like if that was my main motivation, I would have lived a very different life. It would not have been based around being like, maybe someone will like this song, maybe. That's my big sure shot financial plan. So ultimately, like I think that it's been a success. I'm lucky to have been raised by musicians who had the same sort of attitude about that, that they didn't feel like their life was wasted just because they hadn't found international fame. And so they, just were happy to be able to like live their life and live it sort of on their own terms and explore the things that they found interesting on a day-to-day basis, like, and develop themselves in a way that they felt satisfied about. So I feel the same way about that. And I've also had some success in an actual like outward, worldly, really easily quantifiable way, and I'm grateful for that. And I hope I'm grateful for the amount that I've had so far, and I will continue to be grateful for any more as it comes, and I'll deal with it one day at a time, I guess.
That's awesome, man. And I'm foreseeing a lot more success in your future, man, with this new album. And
well, thank you, I appreciate that.
Michael's new self-titled album is out June 10th via W.I.T.C.H and Majestic, right? Majestic, right? Record Majestic Stick, right?
That's Majestic Silk and W.I.T.C.H.
Silk,
yeah,
Silk. I said Stick, but you get it. Silk, yeah. Majestic Silk and W.I.T.C.H Records out June 10th. That's it. It's gonna be great. I'm calling that right now. And you could stream Neither Love Nor Money. And at this time that this is out, maybe the second single will be out, but we'll see. So
wait, when is this gonna come out?
I believe the first week of May.
So it will most likely, this song, Exactly What I Needed, will be out, or like right about to come out. So keep an eye out for that song too.
That's gonna be awesome. And then the third one you're gonna have to wait for, but it's
the third one is gonna come out after this, and then the album will come out. So that's how it's gonna work out.
June 10th though, and that's gonna be awesome. That's gonna be really, really cool. But in the meantime, Neither Love Nor Money, and that's all on all platforms. It's everywhere. You can stream it, and there's a tasty little music video to go along with it as well. Really
Ryan
cool.
Baxley. Shout out Ryan Baxley. We haven't shouted him out yet. Great video director, great artist, and he did a great job on that video.
That whole studio, that whole team that he's a part of as well is very, very cool.
His Mind Palace and everything. Yeah, he's great.
Mhm.
And his wife Alice Baxley did some photo shoot for us, and she's great. And the whole group of people that are in the video are just a bunch of our friends from LA too, who are all, I was, very happy and proud to be able to show them, put them on display in the video, and it was a really fun day.
It's looked like a very fun thing. The film is super cool, so definitely check that out. That's on YouTube. I'll link it and you can just click the bio or whatever the description thing, not the bio, but you knew Michael. And be sure to check out all the previous releases on all streaming platforms and at Bandcamp, michaelrault.bandcamp.com. And this thing's sliding, of course, right when I'm doing the promo. And the people can stay up to date with you. Instagram is the best way. Yeah.
Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. I have a website that I haven't been updating for a long time, but I'll probably start updating it closer to the album release. All that stuff. Yeah, but mostly all the social media. We got all the social media, and I put stuff up on it usually pretty thoroughly.
Yeah. And that's at Michael Rault, Michael _ Rault on Instagram. Is it the same for Twitter too?
I think it might just be Michael Rault with no underscore on Twitter, which is annoying. But if you search Michael Rault on the internet, you'll find all these things. So yeah,
you'll find it. Keep up to date, Michael. You're the man, dude.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. It's always a pleasure coming on.
I'm gonna have you on again, and then we're gonna look for those aliens and whatnot. We got a lot.
I'm excited. I wonder what will be happening the next time I come on. Maybe another record. It's a whole other universe that I haven't even imagined yet. But it'll be interesting to get to that place and do that.
But you do know because you're an alien. Anyways, all right, Michael. I'm gonna talk to you in a minute. I appreciate you, buddy. Thank you so much.
Man. Thanks for having me.